good, y'all? It's your boy Jay back at it again. Today we got he cracked multiple realities, then passed away by being inspired. Y'all know what the deal is, man. Follow me on both Jays here and Jays there. Get tapped on my socials. Without further ado, let's get started.
What you're suggesting here is something
This should be very interesting.
I think if I can read into what you're saying, it has implications for science and for the scientific community.
We're locked in this apparently solid, substantive reality. The universe has many, many levels of reality. We just haven't accessed the level that shows us how profound and magical that reality is. What I'd like to do next is I'm working on a book that is the practical application of this holographic idea in all of its various phases. We've got to understand that we have this enormous capability, but our conscious mind feeds it all kinds of things unwittingly and gives it all kinds of mistaken directions. And I want to write a book that really deals with all these things on all kinds of levels, saying, here are the practical applications, how it ways it. You don't have to deal with the very sort of heady space-time aspects of these things.
Right after making that statement on TV, he died in a very strange way. His name is Michael Talbot, an independent
The elite saw that shit and they said, we gotta get rid of this nigga. He knows too much.
researcher who had decoded reality, or multiple realities, something most people were never supposed to know. He passed away suddenly, and his ideas forced many scientists to question what they thought they knew. Talbot's central claim was bold. This world isn't the only one. There are parallel realities happening at the same time, but we can't normally see them. By the late 20th century, quantum mechanics had already exposed cracks in the traditional view of an objective universe. The double-slit experiment revealed that particles behave differently when observed, suggesting that the observer is not outside the system, but part of it. Rather than dismissing this as an anomaly, Talbot treated it as the foundation of understanding existence.
Reality in a hologram can manifest in two ways, as a concrete image or as this sort of indecipherable blur of energy. An analogy to this is kind of when you're watching Johnny Carson new television set, that's really, his image is encoded in two ways. One is as the concrete image on the TV set, one is as the blur of radio waves permeating the living room. And if the universe is a hologram of some sense, in some way, it suggests that there may be two very drastically different levels to reality, that the concrete reality we see, when we look at these chairs and at the trees and the clouds and everything like that,
Our bodies
are just one way that reality manifests, and that at some deep level, there's a level of reality where everything dissolves into an ocean of energy that is holographically interconnected, where every portion of the universe is contained in every tiny area of the universe.
From this perspective, reality is layered. Each level of perception connects to deeper levels, and all of them converge into a unified field where the division between mind and matter disappears. Within such a framework, death is not an ending, but a transition, a movement into another layer, similar to shifting frequencies. This wasn't presented as...
I'm not fully knowledgeable about the idea of multiple realities. However, I do know about some level of this because I've studied the law of attraction and manifestation, how there's, different realms. You got the material realm, you got your mental realm, and you got the spiritual realm.
vague speculation. It was a coherent framework. Matter depends on consciousness, not the other way around. For ordinary readers, this was a shocking reversal of common sense. For certain institutions, it overlapped with secret research into altered states and perception.
If you take two subatomic particles like electrons, in certain instances, when you do something to one, it will always affect the other, no matter how far apart they are. It's kind of like stories that you've heard of identical twins where when one is hurt, the other feels the pain. And the problem is that we can find no process known to physics that explains how these could be sending a signal back and forth. In fact,
because it would have to be faster than the speed of light.
Instantaneous. It would have to be an instantaneous signal, and Einstein's theory of relativity said you can't have instantaneous signals because it would mean that you could violate the time barrier and conceivably call your grandfather and tell him not to marry your grandmother. And most physicists say, well, this would be just too troubling to incorporate into a rational picture of reality.
Think about identical twins. There are countless stories where one feels something the moment the other is hurt or in danger, even if they're miles apart. It's hard to explain that in normal physical terms. Talbot connected this with what physics was already finding at the quantum level. particles that act the same way, linked instantly no matter the distance. And if matter itself can stay connected like that, then maybe our minds work through the same hidden network, connected in ways science still doesn't fully understand. If the universe is holographic, then everything we experience is interconnected, and every part reflects the whole. Time, space, and matter may not be absolute, but flexible, shaped by deeper laws we don't yet fully grasp. Talbot suggested that life and death are part of one continuous spectrum, where consciousness moves across realities rather than vanishing. Just as this message began to spread more widely, he died, and what he left behind continues to raise questions about the very structure of existence.
Get that book. Might have to cop one of those. Order that bit on Amazon.
At a deeper level, a very holographic level of reality, every particle in the universe collapses to a sort of cosmic unity. They're not signaling each other. They're like that fish where there's the level of the aquarium. And so what that means, talking about words, is that there is no separation between electrons. Furthermore, there's no separation between people. And this has all kinds of very boggling implications, one of which is that we've always tried to understand, for example, psychic phenomena, like how could I get information out of your head and my head, as some sort of signal going back and forth. But if we're organized, if we live in a universe that's organized holographically, you no longer have to tackle it that way. It could be that I have the entire universe and every neuron, every cell, every atom, every electron in my head, and you do also. So when we can access that, we can access information that seems to be beyond our normal sensory reach.
This was one of his most provocative claims, that separation itself is an illusion. If every part of the universe already contains the whole, then the idea of being isolated, whether as particles or as people, simply collapses. What appears as distance is just part of the projection. In that sense, telepathy or intuition would not be about sending signals back and forth, but about accessing a field that already holds everything, everywhere, at once. The real shock was how far this could go. If every person carries the entire universe within them, then boundaries between minds are only temporary filters. Under certain conditions, those filters could loosen, and experiences usually dismissed as paranormal might be glimpses of how reality truly works.
Well, it also turns out that our brain uses Fourier transforms to translate visual information.
Sorry if I'm not talking as much as I usually do. This is dead ass fascinating. I'm locked in, bro. I'm focused, nigga. Let me see if this other vid almost uploaded. Yeah, this probably got like 2 to 3 minutes left. Yo, this shit fascinating a hoe, bro. I might dare to rewatch this vid on my own time and take notes on that bit. I'm not even gonna front. It's some fascinating ass shit. He's saying that there's only the illusion of separation because the universe is full of energy regardless, right? Hence why if you raise your energetic frequency, shit is going to work better for you because your energy is traveling. It's traveling far. There's a reason why when someone walks in the room and they got bad energy, you can feel it. You can just sense it. It's like intuition, right? On some conch, like, I'm gonna really have to lock in on this energetic shit, bro. Cause I've been watching Eternal Dawn and he be talking about frequencies and energy, but I'm gonna really have to dig deep, you know what I'm saying? I got a whole notebook about this. This notebook has a lot of notes about retention, spirituality, manifestation, but I can most definitely add to it. Cause this is very, cause if I can understand this, nigga, we already bro, I'm already that guy, but if I can understand this, nigga, we gonna be like the one above all from one, like some real deal metahuman, like, you know what I'm saying? You know how DC be talking about metahumans, like humans that are ascended and are built different both physically and mentally. Bro, I could be on some shit like that, boy. You know what I'm saying? This on some con shit though, on some con shit.
This is a very unusual state of affairs. It's kind of like discovering Eskimos speaking Spanish. You know, it's not proof that the brain is a hologram, but it's suggestive that the brain is a hologram. And it turns out, in fact, all of our senses appear to rely on sort of Fourier transforms, that they all seem to use the same mathematics. So again, here's evidence that the brain uses the same mathematics to decipher the sensory world as are involved in the making of a hologram, which is, as I say, not proof, but compelling evidence that something is going on there.
This was another piece of evidence pointing in the same direction. The mathematics of holograms seem to show up in the way the brain processes sight, sound, and other senses. If true, then our entire nervous system might be working on holographic principles, breaking reality into frequencies and reconstructing it into the
I've heard that word before.
world we see and feel. That would mean perception itself is not a window onto an external reality, but a process of decoding a far more complex pattern hidden beneath appearances. For Talbot, this was more than theory. His perspective was shaped by direct experience.
At a young age, I had an out-of-body experience where I left my body, and it became quite apparent to me while I was having this experience that I was thinking, but my brain was back in my body, which I could see in my bed. I knew it wasn't just a dream because I floated out over the ground outside my family's house, and I saw a book lying on the ground, and it was a book by the French.
My nigga astral projected like Batman in Brave and the Bold. Y'all seen that clip? Nigga Batman astral projected to save himself. Yeah, that shit. He deadass did that.
Short story writer Guy de Maupassant, and the next day, a neighbor
Good,
said,
it's your boy Jay back at it again. Today we got the problem with American education. Gonna get that uploaded very quickly. That was, you know, that was recorded yesterday and all that. We on, you know what I'm saying, we grinding out.
By the way, Michael, I lost a library book by Guy de Maupassant. Have you seen it? And I thought, well, I floated over it last. I didn't tell the neighbor that, but there was the book, and
I've had situations where I thought of a certain scenario and it came to the material world. Like, I would dead think of a scenario where I'm like standing outside a classroom with like a box of yellow Legos in my hand, and then like a couple days later that would be the exact scenario I'll be in. And I'm just thinking that has to be this manifestation, visual imagery, astral, this gotta be real, because I've had that happen to me before. Like, where I've imagined a scenario and it just happens the exact way it happened in the dream. No bullshit.
I'm still very scientifically oriented. I want to understand the world in scientific terms, but it was really the first time that I sort of had to confront, you know, the difference between my spiritual beliefs that we can survive, you know, our bodily death, and this deeply held belief, scientific belief of mine that it's the brain that's doing the thinking. And I realized I had a kind of epiphany where I thought it isn't the brain that's doing the thinking. So I am not entirely certain that it's just the electromagnetic interference patterns that is the brain hologram, because those obviously would perish when the brain perishes. I think there might be some subtler level, some subtler energy that we haven't discovered with our technology that's involved in this also.
If thought could continue outside the body, then the brain could not be the ultimate source of consciousness. Something else had to be at work, some layer of energy or order that science had not yet detected. For him, this was the beginning of an unavoidable conclusion. Death might only affect the body, not the mind that animates it.
There's a device called a squid, which is a sort of electrical coil in which it looks like we may be able to demonstrate that the current, if you say which direction is the current going in the coil, it's going both directions at once, which is kind of an impossibility, but to simultaneously do that too is a quantum phenomena, that these two realities are overlapping. So I think we will cross that barrier.
I dare you to let me build you a complete...
Nigga got me focused, bro. Nigga really got me in this bitch. Bro, you know what I mean? Where Patrick looking like that, nigga got me looking like that, boy. I ain't gonna front. Some crazy ass info.
If a current can flow in two directions at the same time, then reality is not locked into one outcome. It means that different possibilities can exist side by side, overlapping until something forces a choice. That's not science fiction. It's a lab result pointing to the same conclusion. Our universe may hold multiple realities at once. And if quantum systems can do this, the question is whether consciousness itself is capable of moving between those overlapping states. The implications here go beyond physics. They touch everyday life, even medicine.
In medicine, people have used this application of the holographic idea that we respond to the model of reality. Say this may be why we respond more to the placebos, to fake drugs. There's a very famous example of a fellow who had lymphatic cancer, tumors the size of oranges all throughout his body. His doctor basically thought he had about 3 days left to live. The fellow heard about a new drug called Crebiozin and said, "You've got to give this to me." And the doctor said, "Well, frankly, I don't think you have long to live, and this drug takes several weeks to take effect." He gave the man Crebiozin, and 3 days later, the man's tumors melted, as the doctor put it, like snowballs in a hot stove, completely gone out of his body. Faster than the strongest.
Definitely a real thing. People will take a pill that has no effects. Well, because they imagine it's a pill, because they believe that taking the pill is going to get rid of the thing, that actually gets rid of the thing.
It could have melted them away. The man is up and around, walking around his hospital room, resumes his normal life, seems to be completely cancer-free. Several months down the line, he reads an article saying Crebiozin isn't that effective. Boom, 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 all his tumors come back. He's back in the hospital. The doctor starts to realize that maybe it wasn't the drug that cured the man, but the man's belief. So he lies to the man.
Power of belief. Delusion, if you will.
And he says, those articles are wrong. Crebiozin is effective, and in fact, I've got an even more potent version of it. He injects just salt water into the man's veins. Again, the man's tumors melt away. He resumes his normal life. Unfortunately, many months down the line, he reads final studies on Crebiozin saying it's completely ineffective. Boom, 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 his tumors come back and he dies.
Stories like this reveal something we usually overlook. The body doesn't just respond to chemicals, it responds to belief. If the mind expects healing, the body can sometimes follow, even when the treatment itself is fake. That's the placebo effect, and Talbot saw it as another clue that consciousness is not separate from physical reality, but directly shapes it. Think about what that means. If expectation alone can shrink tumors, then our model of reality isn't just in our heads, it reaches into the body, into matter itself. The placebo effect stops looking like a medical trick and starts to look like evidence that belief can bend the physical world.
One of the areas you had mentioned earlier, that one of the exciting things about the holographic idea is that people have taken this and explored all different realms. That some have used it to say this is how acupuncture works, because it turns out that there are little micro acupuncture systems where you can find the entire body in the acupuncture points of the ear.
Recapitulated
right
in the ear, yes.
Right. So that we've talked about the placebo effect. Some have said that the holographic idea applies in near-death experiences. One of these individuals is Kenneth Ring, who is at the University of Connecticut, studies near-death experiences. And it's interesting because in report after report of people who have been declared clinically dead, go to some apparent other level of reality and then come back, they refer to this other level of reality with terms like frequency and energy, and even hologram, that it's a more plastic level of reality where thought seems to create things instantly. There are instances of people having near-death experiences where they think they're hungry and instantly food appears. Or perhaps an even better example, when people find themselves out of their body, there are cases where people look down and see that they're in a naked body and they go, oh my gosh, I'm naked. Instantly they have clothing on. Now we don't assume that clothing has a soul, that it has a spirit that survives.
Near-death stories take things to another level. People who go through them often say their mind kept going even when their body had stopped. What they describe sounds very different from normal life, more flexible, more alive, almost like the world around them was responding.
Transferred to the Soul Society in that bitch. In fact, this
more
might be
flexible,
the thumbnail.
more alive, almost like the world around them was responding straight to their thoughts. Talbot looked at this and said, maybe this is a small glimpse of how reality really works when the brain is no longer in the way.
I very much believe that our soul lives many, many lives and goes through these things. And I think at this point in our development,
must be somewhat behind the idea of reincarnation, not the fact that death is truly the end, but the fact that it's just a transition to another life.
That we have manifested in the physical because we don't have a consciousness that's developed enough to deal with reality with its full grandeur and plasticity. That for us it would be very frightening if there weren't solid rules, if everything started to slip and slide. But I think as your soul goes along, it starts to learn to deal with more than this reality, with other levels on the holographic television set. And when you start to open those doorways, that's when reality, the plasticity of reality, starts to seep in. But then you go through a sort of shamanistic rite of passage, because you've got to go through, most people go, put an interpretation on it. They go, oh, this is an angel, or this is, a demon, or a UFO abduction. And if you do that, you're missing the basic lesson of shamanism, which is that everything that you experience in the non-ordinary reality of the shaman has psychological meaning for you, that you are entering a level of reality that responds so directly to your thoughts that your every thought helps what manifests. And in that instance, you can't ask what is there, but why have I created what is there? And I think that's the lesson that our souls are learning as we evolve.
As consciousness evolves, those rules loosen, and we start to see how plastic reality really is. That's why strange experiences, visions, encounters, even UFO abductions might not be what they seem. They could just be the mind trying to make sense of another layer of reality that answers directly to thought.
When you encounter something that is truly of another reality, your perceptions and trying to pull it out of this blur of energy and make it into a hologram don't quite know how to put it into form. And so I think that the reason there are many psychological motifs in UFO experiences is because there's something going on, but the surface appearance is a product of the person's own psyche.
In other words, a lot of what's going on in these various holographic realities are like ink blots.
Right. They can be interpreted like dreams as well, that they have psychological symbols in them, but they're also something real there, because UFOs can be tracked on radar. They leave circles, on the ground. They leave traces of physical evidence.
The universe, in his eyes, wasn't a fixed machine. It was alive, layered, holographic.
Bro, deadass cracked the code.
And deeply connected to consciousness. Death wasn't the end. Paranormal experiences weren't random. Even the strangest encounters could be part of a deeper structure we're only just starting to notice.
What y'all think? This some crazy ass stuff, bro. I ain't gonna lie. Yo, bro, we really was locked in, bro. We really learned about this woo woo wow wow shit. But with that being said, shout out to Be Inspired. It's your boy Jay. Stay healthy, stay blessed, and I'm out.